Hilchis Chovel U'Mazik Perek Shlishi. Now we learned that a Chovel b'chaveri, the special din that is chai b'chamisha dvarim, nezek, tsar, ripui, sheves, and beishas. Now how you assess the nezek, tsar, ripui, and sheves, the Rambam already discussed. And here in Perek Shlishi, the Rambam will discuss how you assess beishas. Perek Shlishi. Ketzad misharin haboishas. Is hakel lefi ha-mevayish va-mizbayish. So it's poshut b'neged the mizbayish, that if the mizbayish is a godel, so then it's a greater busha than if the mizbayish is a cotton. But b'neged the mevayish, the Rambam also says, Eine doima mizbayish min ha-cotton le-mizbayish mi-odem godel mechubet. Shezeh shebir shezeh hakal is boshti merubei. Those becoming mizbayish from someone that's a cotton is a greater busha than being nizbayish from someone that's a godel. That's the Rambam saying bepashtus. That again, that someone that's nizbayish from someone that's godel is not as great as a busha as becoming nizbayish from someone that's cotton. Now others learn differently, that sometimes being nizbayish from a godel could be greater than being nizbayish from someone that's smaller than him. There's the fact that it was a godel that was mevayish him, so that's a greater busha. But the Rambam says bepshitus that being mizbayish min ha-godel is not as much of a busha as being mizbayish min ha-cotton. Halacha beis. Ha-mevayish is ha-orum, oy mishu bemerchetz is potter. So that's really, the Gemara says ha-mevayish is ha-orum. The question is, what was the level of busha? So some learn over there that pshat is he was miktsasi orum, like the Rambam is going to say b'hemshech, he was already miktsasi orum, and you caused him to be completely orum. So the fact that he was already miktsasi orum, so extending that matzav of being orum is not such a great busha. But from Lashon Rambam, the pashtus is we're talking about someone that's completely orum. Hamavayish is orum means someone that's completely orum. So if he's a completely orum, so what's the busha? The busha is not making him more orum because he's completely orum. No, since he's in a matzav of being an orum, so Memela, that matzav, even other types of busha, because already since he's in a compromised position, so to speak, so therefore in another type of busha is also not so great. So the people are orum over there. So even though he dafke maybe is not orum, that's what Tesa says also in Baba Kama. Magid Mishnah says over here that in other words, a person that's orum, even lepeil, he's not in a beis hamerchetz, he's in a matzav that he's orum. So being mavayishim even through other types of busha is not as bad as when a person is not orum, when a person's dressed. And al derezeh, when a person's in a merchetz, so since there are people over there that are orum, so being mavayishim again is not as strong as a busha as in other places. Now that's the number one. Now the Rambam continues, noshva haruach, v'havcha shulav al panov, v'hareu orum, v'hareze v'hoisav zeh b'avshartosi. In other words, he was wearing clothes. He was wearing those clothes that he was wearing that's similar to a dress type of clothes, a robe. He was wearing, let's say, a robe. And lepel, as a result of the wind, so this robe was raised, so he was partially undressed. And now this person went ahead and continued and made him even more undressed. He was massive in his undressedness, in matzav of being undressed. So again, so it was nashva ruach v'hav chashulav al panav. So the bottom was raised, and v'hareu orim, and therefore he's partially undressed. Now v'hoisav zeh b'avshatasi, this person caused him to be more undressed. In other words, he continued undressing him. So the din is chai bebeishis. So he's also chai bebeishis because lepel, the fact that he continued this massive of undress, in other words, made him more undressed than he was before. So that's a busha. Person's fully dressed, and now you go ahead and undress him. So that's a greater busha than undressing someone that's already partially undressed. A god of later Lenore, a person is going down into the river. So again, he raised his clothes partially in order to be able to go down to the river. So he's not completely undressed, but he's partially undressed. Eisha olim in Anor, or he was on his way back from the river, and again he was partially undressed. Ubiyashe, and he was mevayishim, which means he caused him to be more undressed, is chayev. Someone that's in such a matzav is not the same. If someone that's completely dressed, so it's a pashtazach. A person that's partially undressed, and you make him from partially undressed more undressed, is not as bad. Not as bad as making a person completely undressed. Halacha Gimel, Hamavayis Shayoshan is chayev bebeishas. Someone embarrassed someone that was sleeping, so he's also chayev bebeishas. The imes b'teich shnasi, and over here embarrassing would also be, let's say, we'd put him in a massive of being undressed. That's the cases the Rambam speaking about busha, causing him to be in a massive undressed. So even though he did it while he was sleeping, but lepel is chayiv bebeishis. However, v'immes b'tech shnasei, v'lehekitz v'lehirgish b'zeh shebiyashay, he never realized that something was done to him in order to embarrass him. He says, ein goyven boishizem min ha-mavayish. So you can't be, Bezin is not goyver from the mavayish, because since lepel, the mizbayish was never aware that he was nizbayish, so therefore it's not clear whether or not there's chiyuv of beishis. Is there a chiyuv of beishis if the mizbayish was never aware that he was mizbayish? However, v'im tovsu ha-yorshim, if the yorshim chop this money from the mevayish, so because it's a suffix, the Rambam always holds that tfisa helps by a suffix, is ein mitziyim miyada. So you can't be goyver the busha, but on the other end, if they grab this money, so then ein mitziyim miyada. Halacha Dalet. Hamavayish is a sheita potter, because a sheita doesn't have a regish of busha, so therefore there's no chiyuv for being mavayishim. However, the mavayish is a cheresh chayus, even though a cheresh has a din of a sheita legabi chiyuvi mitzvahs, but nevertheless the pale he has a hargosha of busha, so therefore for being mavayish a cheresh chayiv. Hamavayish is a ger es oevet chayiv. Hamavayish is a cotton. If he has a sense of busha, he could feel embarrassed if you embarrass him, is chayiv him lav potter. Umikol mokim, even though we're saying all these things, you're chayiv for a ger, you're an eved, and a cotton which is margish k'shemachlim meisei, aber ein adem, hamavayish is a cotton, the mavayish is a godel, v'lei mavayish is a eved, the mavayish is ben chayden, v'lei mavayish cheresh, the mavayish bikeach. In other words, that sense of busha, that uncomfortableness of the busha is not in the same madrega by all these people, and therefore when a person is mevayish a godel, a regular godel, so memela, not an eved, not a ger, so that busha is a greater busha. Mashenka, when you mevayish someone that's mlechatchila, not in that madrega, so therefore his sense of busha is less. His sense of busha is less. I mean, normally you would think to yourself that l'chura, a ger and an eved, maybe a ger, I'll call upon him, feels a certain sense he feels mechatchila a certain sensitivity. So by him the busha is l'chura more. L'chura he feels more embarrassed. Mashengen Vaister is not like that. Vaister is a ger that's nizbayish, so the madrega of busha is not in the same way like the madrega of a regular Yisrael. Halacha hei. Hamavayish is chavere b'dvarim. So the whole dinam of busha that we're learning is that he did something, he hit him, he did something to him, to his body, and as a result of that, he got busha, or he uncovered him. So again, through that he became nizbayish. Now mevayish is chavere b'dvarim. In other words, he said something to him, and through that he caused busha. Eishirokak al b'godav, or he spat at him, but he didn't actually touch his body; he touched his b'godim. Is potter minat tashlum. So this chiyuv boishes, which the Torah was mechayev, was a chiyuv boishes when a person hits someone. When a person hits someone, it's part of the chovel b'chaveri. A chovel b'chaveri is chayev in the chamisha dvarim. Masha'ingan, a person was meva, and through the chavol, even he wasn't geirim nezek, and he wasn't geirim tsar, and he was only geirim busha. The Moshe we learned before, if you put a star and hit him with a star or things of that nature, so he didn't really cause any nezek tsar in ripui and sheves. But on the other end, there was a busha that was done to his person. And al derezeh, if he was rokak al psare, so memela again, he touched. He was. That's part of the chovel b'chaveri. Masha'inkin, if a person just says something to someone and through that he embarrasses him, or even if he spits at him but he didn't actually touch his body, he touched only his b'godim, so then that chiyuv boishes of chovel doesn't apply. However, v'yesh lebezin ligder b'dover b'chol mokim b'chol zman k'fi sheyiru. In other words, bezin has to see to it that people shouldn't be being bevayish people, even in a way that there's no chiyuv basis. No, again, Beishes, the Chiyuv Beishes, the Chiyuv Tashlumen of Beishes is a Beishes which is part of Chovel B'Chaveri. And Chovel B'Chaveri is only if you hit the person, not if you spit at his clothes, and not if you say something insulting to him. But on the other end, you have to see to it that people shouldn't be embarrassing people and shouldn't be hurting people with words. And Bezin has this obligation, Ligder B'Dover, to make sure that this doesn't happen. Now, and Memela, obviously, to give certain knosses if it does happen. V'imbiyesh Talmid Chachamim, if he was Mevayish Talmid Chacham, so over here, Chayev L'Shalom Le'Beishes Shlema, there's a Chayev Tashlumen of a Beishes Shlema, Afal Pi Shalibiyesh Ele B'Dvarim. So even though we're saying that Mikra the Dina of busha. There's no chiyuv beishis when it was biyashe b'dvarim. But lepel chacham instituted that if a person is mevayish a talmud chacham, even though biyashe b'dvarim, he has to pay him. He has to pay him chayav b'shalom lebeishis shlema. What's the beishis shlema? So the Rambam says, Kvar nifsek hadin shekol ha-mevayish talmud chacham afilu b'dvarim is koin sinoisei v'geiv mimenu mishkal shloishim v'chamisha dinim azov. That you have to give him 35 dinim of zov. Shehu mishkal teisha sloim pachas revia. So in other words, a sela is 4 dinim. So 9 sloim is 36 dinim. So it means 9 sloim minus a quarter of a dinner, which is 35 dinim. I mean, minus a quarter of a sela, which is 35 dinim. Even though normally you're not gave a knas, dayoni chutzlars are not gave a knas, they're only dayoni Eretz Yisrael. But this knas, in other words, if a person is mevayish a talmud chacham, afilu b'dvarim, he knows he insults a talmud chacham, so there's a knas, there's a set knas that the chacham instituted that you have to pay shleishim v'chamishim dinar shel zov. Maisim hoyu etzleinu tomid b'kach b'sfarad, and that lepel, if someone was mavaza talmud chacham, so they would give him a knas of 35 dinri zov. Now v'yesh talmid chachamim shehoyu meichel zeh al zeh. There were talmid chacham that were meichel from this knas. V'kach no'alehem. V'yesh sheteveya. There was a mitzias of a talmid chacham that was teveya, and v'esim sharim b'neim. Aval hadayonim hoyu emel l'mavayish chayev ato litn le'litn zov. So in other words, be'etzem, the talmid chacham has a right to mon, and the dayan says that he has to pay 35. A talmid chacham has a right if he wants to be meichel, or a talmid chacham he has a right to agree to a pshara, not to take the full 35 din zov. He could agree to a pshara, aber mishuras hadin. The talmid chacham has a right to be teveya, and the dayan is obligated to tell the person that he's being teveya from the nitva that is chayiv atolitin the full amount. That's what he said before. That he chayiv l'shalom lebeishes shleim. That was chayiv l'shalom lebeishes shleim means the full amount of the 35 din rizov. So this is a special din b'negei talmid chacham. So the passage we learned that if a person was mevayish a regular person bidvarim, so there's no chiyuv beishes, but yesh lebezin ligde b'dover to make sure that these things don't happen. Masha'enkin, if someone is mevayish a talmid chacham b'dvarim, so there was a special knas instituted that he should pay 35 din rizov. That's what talmid chacham could mon. But on the other hand, he has a right to be moichel. He has a right to agree to a pshara. Yeah. On that, the Ram continues. Halacha zayin. Aval b'sham mevayish shara am b'dvarim is potem not tashlumen. Mikra the dinner. There's no chiyuv beishes. This chiyuv beishes only applies when he's mevayish b'yadayim. He's mazik, does something to his guf, but not b'dvarim. But nevertheless, oven godelu, and ve'eni mecharef umegadef la'am el rosh sheta. Who would be a person that would go ahead and mecharef means would speak badly about a person, who knows, insult people, umegadef, and to curse people, is ella only someone that's a rosha and he's also a sheta. Someone that embarrasses someone even with words is Eile Chelik Leila Mabos. So the Rambam is speaking about that even though Mitzad Hilchas Dinim Mominus, there's no Chiyav Be'emes Mominus unless Bezdin is Goyder Bedover, only by a Talmid Chachamim, so they instituted a special Knas. But nevertheless, we have to know that this idea of being malden someone barabim or hurting someone with words is something which is an oven godel, and from malden the chaver barabim, alam kosher barabim, so ein lechelik el mabo. Halacha ches. Now yesh hakois rabbis sheyesh behem bizui. By giving this hakor, you're embarrassing the person that's getting the hakor, and also v'tzar mat, he's also being pained a little bit. Ve'ein behem nezik, and there's no real nezik. So there's certain types of, as the Rambam will mention, certain types of hakois, certain types of hitting, which causes embarrassment by being hit this way, and it also causes a certain amount of pain, but not really nezik. In other words, it doesn't really, he doesn't become, doesn't take away from his value if they're going to sell him as an evet. Kvar poskolem chacham dom ksuvim. The chachamim set up domim ksuvim how much you have to pay for these types of zekas. So you don't go ahead and start assessing according to a regular person. The pastors how much each particular person, there's already domim ksuvim. As the Ram will say, that's only domim ksuvim b'negei adam mechubet. Masha'enkin, if a person is makeh a chaveri, one of these hakois, so there's a setup chazal instituted a certain amount, how much you have to pay for these types of hakois. And v'kulam knas is same. They're a knas. Ve'esi amom and hakotzev hu dmei atzar v'habeshes v'haripui v'hasheves. That includes, and we're talking about there was no nezek. So Mela, this includes any tsar that happened, or any beishes, or any ripui and sheves. They're all included in this fixed amount that Chazal instituted for these types of hakois. Ben tzarech l'refuah v'sheves, ben leit tzarech kazel m'shalom. So Nachamol, the Rambam is going to tell you a list of certain hakois that there's a fixed price, and that fixed price is paying for the nezek. There's no nezek. It's paying for the tsar and for the ripui and the sheves and the beishes, even though there was no ripui and there was no sheves. But if there was ripui and sheves, this would include it. And if there wasn't, so this is also part of the chiyuv, and this covers the tsar and the beishes. V'kamuhu mishalom. See, Ram gives a list. Haboyed b'chaveri b'ragli. Someone kicks someone with his foot. Is mishalom chomer shloim. You have to pay chomer shloim for kicking someone with your foot. However, he ko ba'arkuvase. He hit him with his knee. He didn't kick him with his foot, with the bottom of his foot, but rather he kicked him with his knee. He hit him with his knee, so that's less. And mishalim shalosh shloim. Then you pay 3 shloim. So again, for kicking with the foot is 5 shloim. For hitting with the knee is 3 shloim. Now kibus as be'esav k'me'eged aguda v'yikol biyodik shu aguda. Notice he clenches his fist and he punches him. He punches him with his fist. So that for punching someone with your fist is mishalim shleish esi shloim. You have to pay 13 shloim. Now toka es chaveri bekape. You slapped someone with your palm, with your hand. You slap someone. There's told me you slap him on his body. Is mishalim sela. So then you have to pay a sela. For slapping someone, you pay a sela. Again, for kicking someone, you pay 5 shloim. For hitting someone with your knee, you pay 3 shloim. For punching someone, you have to pay 13 shloim. And for slapping someone, you pay 1 sela. That's when you slap him on whatever part of the body. However, sotri al panov, if you slap him across the face, so now it goes up as mishalim chamishim shloim. So for slapping someone across the face, you have to pay 50 shloim. That's when you slap him with the palm, with the open palm, with the side of the palm, which is the bottom part of the palm. However, sotre miacheri yodi, in other words, with the back of the palm, with the back of the hand, you went ahead and hit him on the face. Sotre is talking about you smacked him on the face, but not with the palm, with the inside of the palm, but rather the back of the palm. The back is then mishalim me'asel. You have to pay double. You have to pay double. So again, for kicking is 5. For hitting with your knee is 3. For punching him is 13. For slapping someone is 1. Slapping across the face is 50. And slapping him across the face, but not with the front, with the bottom part of your palm, but rather with the backhanded slap. So that's 100 sela. V'cheinem tzirim biyozni, if you pulled his ear, a tolish besare, or you pulled his hair, either his ear or his hair, a shirokak, or you spit at him, v'higia reik bepsari, and the spit actually touched his flesh, or you have her talis miolav, or you took his clothes off him, or a pararisha you uncovered the head of a woman, is on for all these things is mishalim meyasela. You have to pay meyasela. Ukazeu mishalim al kol maisa maisa. In other words, if he does it more than once, for each time he does it, that's the amount. So we said before that if you kick someone, that the knas is 5 sela. So if you kick him 4 times, afilu zuach rezu, 4 times, one after the other, is mishalim esrim shloim. Now sotri al panav shtei stires. If you smack him across the face twice, is mishalim me'asel. Because smacking across the face is 50 shloim, and for smacking him across the face twice is 100 sela. V'chein b'shar, and al derez all the other knosses. So if you do it more than once, you have to pay it according to the amount of times that you did it. Now kol elu asloim, when it's saying how many you have to give shloim, so there are different types of shloim. There are shloim which are pure silver, and there's shloim which were in Eretz Yisrael, which weren't pure silver. It was only 1/8 of it silver, and the rest of it was made out of copper. So kol elu asloim, hey mikesev Eretz Yisrael beisi azman. We're talking about from the Eretz Yisrael dika money, which was during that time when Chazal instituted it. Shahaya b'chol sela chatzi dinner kesef u'shleisha dinner mechza. So a seller had 4 dinim, so a half of the dinner was a half a dinner of kesef, and the 3.5 was made out of necheshes. Shleisha dinner mechza necheshes. So it was only an eighth of kesef. Lefichach mish and ischay b'kois elu l'shala mea sela. So if you have to pay mea sela means mea sela, which is an eighth kesef, and 7/8 necheshes is areza mishalem shtei mesi sela or mechza kesef noki. So he has to pay 12.5 sela of kesef noki, which is an eighth of 100th of 100. Now by medvar mamurim, all these dinim that we said that there's the fixed amount of how much you have to pay for these types of busha, which includes busha and some tsar and ripun sheves as well, if they are there, is talking about b'mechubed. You're mavaz someone that's an ish mechubed. Ish mechubed doesn't mean a especially choshev person, but a regular person, we will call it a balabatisha person, a regular balabatisha person. Aval adam shehu mavuz. If you have a person that's a mavuzav, ein a makbid b'chol elu advarim ukiyetz b'mi b'chlal. We're talking about a person that's an ish mavuza and he's not makbid for being embarrassed. Being embarrassed is not a big deal for him. Is ein a natal elu fi masharoylo. So he needs a special assessment. If you go ahead and you do any of these things to that person, so since this person is considered an ish mavuza, so then you have to make a special assessment. Now, what would mean an ish mavuza? What would mean a person that's mavuza? So the Ram teaches us, there are certain people, the Ram calls them ku'urim. Ku'urim normally means some people that are not nice. But the Ram over here says, yesh b'nei adam ku'urim. So obviously it means in their personality. She'ein makpidim al boshtom. They're not really uncomfortable about being embarrassed. V'chol hayem mevazim atzmem b'chol mini bizui. They embarrass themselves. They do things which really cause them busha, and they do that derech schek, either in a derech schek v'kalus reish, little pruta achas min aleitzim hamisakim imoim. So those people are leitzim and they want to do certain things, and they're willing to get embarrassed in order to get a little bit money, so a small amount of money. So we see that these are people that are not really makpid al boshtam. So that's the people. That's Adam Shu Mavuza, Veina Makpid. That's the Adam Shu Mavuza. We see that he does things which are obviously show that he has no problem with getting a busha. So Mela, so for them wasn't instituted these takonas of how much money to pay for these types of bushas. Over there you have to have a special bezna. Bezna, that mokum has to decide how much this person deserves for this type of a busha.